Hello students, good afternoon everyone. We are live now. In previous class, we have learned the different basic modes of nutrients. Okay, autotrophic and heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and we have already discussed the autotrophic nutrition in plants. Autotrophic nutrition in plants by the process of photosynthesis. There we have also learned how photosynthesis occurs, what is photosynthesis, what are the raw materials required for photosynthesis, okay, and what are the products of photosynthesis, okay. And we have also discussed one thing, that do photosynthesis takes place in other parts of the plants also? We have already just discussed this. Again I am discussing that other green parts of the plants like green stem, green branches, these parts perform photosynthesis. Just take an example of desert plants. As you know that desert plants, in desert areas there is lack of water or scarcity of water. So to compensate the loss of water, the leaves of desert plants are modified into spines or thorn-like structure. Okay students? Can you hear me properly? Students? Okay. Please turn off your video and audio. Okay. So, the desert plants, the leaves of desert plants are modified into thorn-like structure or spine-like structure to reduce the loss of water or to reduce the rate of transpiration. Transpiration means the process by which plants lose water from their leaves. Okay. So, that structure or that adaptive features of desert plants leaves makes them survive. Okay. And here in desert plant, green stems carry out the photosynthesis. Now my question is for you, that do color leaves can also carry out photosynthesis? Can anyone answer? Yes, the answer will be yes, as they have chlorophyll, or there is presence of chlorophyll in their leaves, but their leaves color are sometimes brown and red. This is due to presence of brown and red pigment. When there is presence of green pigment, then there must be presence of chlorophyll. Means due to chlorophyll the color of leaves are green. Then again one thing, that when the color of leaves are red, then there must be presence of another pigment known as anthocyanin. Anthocyanin. Okay. Anthocyanin. Then when there is presence of brown color in leaves, there must be presence of another pigment known as fucoxanthin, isn't it? So chlorophyll is always present in the leaves, okay, but due to high amount of presence of anthocyanin and fucoxanthin or red or brown pigment in leaves, they mask the green pigment. That is why we cannot able to see the green color of those leaves, those colored leaves. Okay. So they have chlorophyll, isn't it? Any problem? Just this is extra information for you. The color of leaves become red due to presence of anthocyanin pigment, And brown pigment, this is due to presence of fucoxanthin, isn't it? Okay. So I am rubbing this. Next we should proceed another thing. Have you ever heard about algae? Have you ever heard? Algae? Have you ever seen algae? These algae are green patches, and they are slimy in appearance or texture, okay, and they are mainly found in slimy structure present in ponds, then stagnant water bodies, Do you know what a stagnant water bodies means? Where water is not flowing. Okay? Yes, Sampurna and Aniruddha, you have understood now what I have told? Sorry. Okay. So, these slimy and green patches in ponds and stagnant water bodies, they are actually growth of organisms called algae. Understood? And why these algae are green in color? There must be presence of chlorophyll. So, there is presence of chlorophyll. Understood, student? So, when they possess chlorophyll, then they can able to carry out photosynthesis as well, and they can prepare their own food, so they can be called as autotrophs. Understood? Next, you just have learned that plants synthesize carbohydrates through the photosynthesis. But other than carbohydrates, some other foods are also made by plants. What are those? We will learn that other than carbohydrates, some other foods are also made by plants. Carbohydrates. As we have learned that plant uses light energy, then during photosynthesis this light energy is getting converted into chemical energy by means of sugar molecule, that is glucose or carbohydrate. Okay? So here carbohydrate is made up of mainly three components. One is carbon, another is hydrogen, and another is oxygen. So carbohydrate is made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Isn't it, students? This carbon, hydrogen and oxygen together made this carbohydrate. Any problem? Any problem, students? Okay. Now, so we can say that carbon plus hydrogen plus oxygen is equals to carbohydrate. Okay. Next, this carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, they together used to synthesize other component of food, just like proteins and fats. Okay. So these three components, carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, these three used to synthesize such other components of foods like carbohydrates and fats. Isn't it? Okay. So this protein, where does this proteins comes? As we have learned that along with water, some minerals are also uptake by plants from roots to the all parts of the plants. Okay. So along with the minerals like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, these all minerals are comes along with water. Okay. Then from the nitrogenous product or nitrogen, protein is made. Okay. So this protein is containing nitrogen. As I have already told that from nitrogen protein is being made. So this protein must be made of nitrogen. Isn't it? Any problem, students? Any problem? I hope there will be no problem. Next, you must say what is the percentage of nitrogen in the air. Please write in your chat box what is the percentage of nitrogen in air. What is the percentage of nitrogen in air? That is 78%. No, 78% nitrogen. Okay, students? Approximately 78.5% approximately, not that. Okay, approximately. Now this nitrogen, the nitrogen, whatever it is found in the air, this is actually found in our nature. It not non-usable form by plants. Means that nitrogen which is available in the air, that cannot be directly used by the plants. So that raw form of nitrogen is not utilized by the plants. So that raw form of nitrogen is converted into usable form or soluble form. Okay. So such soluble form of nitrogen is only used by the plants. Now how this raw form of nitrogen is getting converted into usable form of nitrogen? So raw form of nitrogen is not used by plants. Understood? Not used by plants. So only usable form of the nitrogen is mainly used by or utilized by the plants. Now this usable form, raw form of nitrogen is getting converted into usable form or soluble form. That is only used by the plant. Isn't it? This usable form is utilized by the plant, and along with water, this nitrogen absorbed by the plants. Okay, students? So we have learned this, how nitrogen is uptaking by the plants. And you might have seen that farmers adding fertilizer rich in nitrogen, as nitrogen is very vital, very much essential or vital for their growth and development, isn't it? So in the fertilizer, nitrogen is mixed. Along with nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium and other minerals are also mixed. They are for proper growth and development of plants, isn't it? And this raw form of nitrogen is getting converted into usable form of nitrogen by some soil bacteria. These soil bacteria actually converting this raw form of nitrogen into usable or soluble form, and that is utilized by the plants. Okay, such bacteria like rhizobium, that is actually present in root nodules of leguminous plants like peas, beans, these are leguminous plants example. They are found in the root nodules of such leguminous plants and they fix the nitrogen. So this is done by nitrogen fixing bacteria. Okay. So N2 fixing bacteria is very essential for conversion of raw form of nitrogen into usable form. So you understood how this nitrogen getting converted into usable form? Okay? I hope you understood. Okay. Now comes to another thing, that is the other modes of nutrition in plants. Plants not only make their food by autotrophic mode, they also make their food by heterotrophic mode. Why they are just destined to heterotrophic modes of nutrition? There must be some reason that there may be absence of chlorophyll, or they cannot synthesize their own food. That may be reason. And another thing, that they do not get the sufficient or required mineral whatever they want from the by making their making their food, so that they are destined to heterotrophic modes of nutrition. Okay. Now I will discuss heterotrophic mode of nutrition in plants. Okay. We can divide this mode into 4 types. Okay. Divide this mode into 4 types. First one is parasitic plant. Okay. Or parasite plant. Next one, insectivores or insectivorous plants. Next comes to symbiotic association, and lastly saprophytes. Okay. So one by one I will describe each mode of nutrition, isn't it? So these modes of nutrition, why they are destined for such heterotrophic mode of nutrition, we will discuss. You may have seen that there are some yellow wiry branch structure twining around stem and branches of a tree. These plants are known as cascata or amarvale. These plants are also known as parasitic plants. Okay. From your book you can see page number 5, figure 1.5, you can see the picture of amarvale or cascata. This is a parasitic plant. Okay. Now what is the main feature of parasitic plants that we will see? Parasitic plant, the main features they have, they do not have chlorophyll. When they do not have chlorophyll, so they cannot make their food. Okay. So they are unable to photosynthesize. Okay. Next, it derives ready-made food it derives ready-made food from host plant, means where it is climbing, okay? And they derives nutrition from the host plants, and also as they are deriving nutrition, they makes that host plant that deprives the essential nutrients, isn't it? So the host plant deprives essential nutrients, isn't it? Next, so that cascata is an example of parasitic plant. We can say, any problem, sir? Okay. Next, I am going to discuss another thing, that is insectivorous plants. Have you ever heard of some plants that eat animals? These are insectivorous plants like pitcher plant, then Venus flytrap. These all are example of insectivorous plants. Okay. So let's begin. Insectivorous plants. In these plants, their leaves are modified into a pitcher-like structure or jug-like structure. Okay, and why they are being adapted for heterotrophic modes of nutrition? We have already learned that plants are actually getting autotrophic modes of nutrition, but they are heterotrophic in nature because they do not get sufficient amount of some minerals which must be required for them. That is why they have destined to heterotrophic mode of nutrition. They are also possessing chlorophyll, and they are also capable of photosynthesis, but they are heterotrophic. As they do not get the sufficient minerals from the soil where they grow. They actually grow in some muddy, swampy area where the soil is lack of nitrogen. When they do not get proper nitrogen, then they cannot utilize the nitrogen in its usable form, and they cannot fulfill their requirements, okay, nutrients requirement. That is why they are in heterotrophic mode, isn't it? Now I am drawing the picture of a pitcher leaf, how their leaf is actually modified here. You can see this is a picture of pitcher-like or jug-like structure. This is okay, and in the apex of the leaf there is a structure. This is called as lid. Okay, this is called as lid, and this is for opening and closing of mouth. Whenever insect is coming, they are just closing their mouth. So inside the pitcher there are some hair present that are directed downwards. Why they are directed downwards? Whenever insects comes near the lid, then they immediately close the lid, and through the action of this hair movement, they just take in the insect downwards. Okay, and then that insect is being pierced by them, and that is mixed with their digestive juice, and they intake the required amounts of nutrients or absorb the required nutrients from the insect. Okay, as they are not getting the proper nutrients from the soil. Okay, that is where they grow in, just like they grow in swampy and muddy areas where the soil is lack of nitrogen. So they fulfill their nutrients by intaking the insect, and that is mixed with the digestive juice, and that nutrients from insect is being absorbed by them. So they do all their required nutrients from that insect. Okay. Any problem? You have to write some points for this. They contain chlorophyll, hence capable of photosynthesis. Okay. But they do not get all the required nutrients from the soil in which they grow. Isn't it? So they actually mainly, there is need of nitrogen. Or you can write, they grow in swampy area where the soil is lack of mineral, example nitrogen. Isn't it? You can write this. This is very important. So they utilize the protein of insects and fulfill its nitrogen requirement. Okay, as we have seen, from nitrogen they get protein. So as they are growing in such a soil, where there is lack of nitrogen, so they get all their requirements of nitrogen from the insect. As you know that proteins also contains nitrogen, and from the insect they are getting protein, and protein that fulfill the requirement of nitrogen. Okay, just try to write. Again I am discussing, in case of insectivorous plants, they contain chlorophyll, hence capable of photosynthesis, but they do not get all the required nutrients from the soil in which they grow. They grow in swampy area where the soil is lack of mineral, example nitrogen. Okay, and they utilize the protein of insects and fulfill its nitrogen requirement. Is it clear to everyone? Is it clear? That must be clear. You can make note on these insectivorous plants what I have written. Okay, this will be helpful to you all. That's all, students. And again, if you have any problem, ask me in the chat box and e-portal also. Okay, students. Goodbye. Next day I will discuss the remaining portion of this chapter. Bye, students.